And what she did was 100%.
Well, this contest has not been so easy from the beginning, and I think maybe I might not be the winner nor the first runner up, but by the grace of God, I did my best and God did it for me. That is just all I have to say. It's a huge
It
surprise
was
to me.
indeed an exceptional moment for her. The joy of this unique experience was vividly written all over her. The purpose of the most beautiful deaf girl in Nigeria is aimed at promoting, advocating, and creating awareness for the rights and dignity through highlighting pressing issues and the plight of the deaf community in Nigeria.
I would like to encourage them, all the deaf girls, to join us, organize a training mentoring club to educate them, to help them, train them so they can become skillful advocates.
Parents have made many mistakes in contributing to their not able to expose their deaf kids. Deaf girls have talents, they are intelligent. If given more time to mentor them, to train them to be the best version of themselves, they would do excellent well. But when you put your faith in them, they will become great. Sadly, many parents keep deaf kids at home because of societal perspective, societal stigma, because of they are scared of, oh, they're going to mock me that I have a deaf child, or maybe the position they are in, they don't want to, show the world that they have a child with disability. So please, when you find out that your child is a deaf, understand that yes, the challenges are there, but education is the best gift you can give to your child to help that child be whoever he or she wants to be.
This is what I will tell you. You, every one of you that feels nothing can come out of deafness. We are beautiful, we are intelligent, we are smart, we are skillful, and the evidence is in what you've seen today. It is clear that yes, deaf can. Only if you give us the support we need, we can move the world. We can shake it very well. I had no idea I would be the winner. Honestly, I'm excited. Thank you so much for the support. I thank God and God bless every one of you. I promise I will work hard by the grace of God. I will do my best. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. I love you all.
It is important for us to note no one is immune from the pains of disability. Everyone must therefore help in spreading the message that being deaf does not mean that they cannot be useful to the society. A deaf child must be given an opportunity to be born and nurtured to full term.
This is against all odds.
This is how the deaf people wave. Congratulations, Prince. When I was watching these beautiful girls displaying their glamour, intelligence, and beauty, something worked through my mind. And then I remembered, I said, wow, I can imagine when Praise parents were told that she's deaf, the society, the world, people will be like, what a waste. But today, this same praise has brought song of praise to the mouth of her parents. This same praise has brought praise upon herself. The most beautiful deaf girl in Nigeria It's for you, praise. No one can take it away from you. Let me tell us something. We live in a world that evolves, and there is a message in a mess. Don't discard anybody. Do not look down on anyone, because tomorrow the story might be different. Thank you for staying with us on Against All Odds. It's been amazing. Learn something today. Learn how to communicate with the deaf. Let's do this again. Next week, same time, same station. My name remains Doshima Pius.
Welcome to Abuja, the place that unites Nigeria.
NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative, and interactive on national issues, accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Hello and welcome to another amazing edition of Your Weekend.
I'm telling you, oh, it has to be heat and it has to be steamy, it has to be hot. But we've decided that, somebody has to tell a story that is family oriented.
I got you out to fight you.
Welcome to another edition of Talking Movie.
Ethan was everyone he ever cared about.
See, when you say poor, you can't call water. You can't see, you don't excavate water.
This is the #1 program, Gallery.
Do you love to gist or gossip?
It's not it is extremely wrong. And we cannot take it.
Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Whip and Grill.
Welcome to the slant today, where we say it as it is and we get to enjoy ourselves talking about various things that are happening in our society.
Beyond 6 packs. Because your job still remains as the man to protect the woman, to project the woman.
You need to do that again.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the U-Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of
National Council of Privatization approves funds to settle factory tech workers.
INEC records 50 attacks on its offices in 15 states.
So all these attacks that have taken place, we have the capacity to recover, and we are going to recover.
Tight Federal Road Safety Corps deploys personnel nationwide.
So that FIC personnel are seen within every 10 kilometers drive.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the appointment of companies as value-added tax withholding agents.
Recently, the Federal Inland Revenue Service issued a public notice appointing MTN, Airtel, and all money deposit banks as VAT collection agents, popularly called VAT agents, to further enhance its revenue generation.
The appointment is pursuant to the powers provided under Section 14, subsection 3 of the VAT Act as amended, and also as defined by the Central Bank of Nigeria CBN guidelines.
The appointment is to allow the FRS to leverage on the resources, technology, and reach of these companies to improve VAT collection and reduce the incidence of VAT debt while reducing cost of collection.
In addition, those appointed as VAT agents will, with effect from the 1st of January 2023, be responsible for withholding VAT at source on all taxable supplies made by their vendors and remitting same to the FRS in the currency of transaction.
Now, the decision of the Federal Inland Revenue Service to appoint the agents is to
who is eligible to collect, and how does it operate in general? What are the penalties for defaulters? These are some of the talking points for our conversation segment onto this edition of Good Morning Nigeria, and I welcome you to the program. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Ian Rajon. You're welcome. Good Morning Nigeria is reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. And as usual, we shall bring you our complimentary segments in the course of the program. For now, we shall have the news highlights with Frama Pine. Hello, Frama. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Yeri. Good morning, Kingsley. Good to see you too. Good morning, Nigerians. And here is the morning news. It is no longer news that President Muhammadu Buhari clocked 80 years old while on official engagement far away United States, and was celebrated by the nation's diaspora community across the God's own state. In a bid to provide succor and ensure payment of entitlement to ex-workers of Aviation Ground Handling Service Provider, Skyway Aviation Handling Company PLC, SACO, the National Council on Privatization, presided over by Vice President Yemi Oshibajo, has approved 1.371 billion naira for the settlement of outstanding redundancy benefits owed to the workers. This was one of the highlights of the 6th meeting of the council held at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. And Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, says it is ridiculous report making the rounds in the social media space that Twitter never negotiated with Nigeria before its suspension was lifted. The minister expressed the federal government's surprise in his remark at the 13th edition of the ongoing PMB scorecard series in Abuja.
Let me say that there was a long-drawn negotiation between Nigeria and Twitter at the instance of the latter. Following the suspension of the platform on June 4th, 2021, because of its persistent use for activities that are capable of undermining Nigeria's corporate existence.
The present government under President Muhammadu Buhari has reaffirmed commitment to promoting gender equality by mainstreaming women in different corridors of decision-making. Minister of Women Affairs, Pauline Thailand, brought this to the fore at the 13th edition of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration scorecard spanning 2015 to 2023.
We need support from all Nigerians. We need you to understand that Ministry of Women Affairs is the most strategic ministry that touches the life of people. It touches the life of the vulnerable. It touches the life of women and children.
And from 2019 general elections to date, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has recorded 50 attacks on its offices in 15 states of the Federation. INEC Commissioner for Information and Voter Education announced this at a sensitization program organized by the Center for Strategic Research and Studies and the National Defense College in collaboration with the African Global Empowerment and Development Network.
And we are going to recover because we are already reprinting the permanent voters cards that were lost during the inferno, and we are also replacing the voting cubicles and ballot boxes that were also lost.
And to judicial matters now, Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has sentenced former senior special assistant to former President Goodluck Jonathan to 2 years imprisonment for contravening the Money Laundering Act. Justice Ifeoma Ojukwu found Doyin Okupe, the defendant guilty of receiving more than 200 million naira cash from former National Security Advisor Sambo Dasuki. Doyin Okupe, who was convicted on 26 counts, was given an option of fine of 13 million naira. Justice Ojukwu held that the action of Okupe, who is the first defendant in the suit filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, violated the Money Laundering Act. The court held that the NSA was not a financial institution, adding that even if the president was said to have authorized the funds, he did not say the money must be paid in cash in violation of the Money Laundering Act. Justice Ojukwu found Doyin Okupe guilty on counts bordering on money laundering, criminal breach of trust, and corruption. The Federal Road Safety Corps has deployed 25,224 personnel, more than 11,000 special marshals, and 743 patrol vehicles, as well as mobile courts across the country for the Yuletide and New Year celebrations. Acting Corps Marshal Dauda Alibiu disclosed this during a media briefing on level of preparedness of the Corps for the end-of-year activities.
Part of our overall strategy is the deployment of patrol teams on major corridors and traffic gridlock-prone areas to ensure that FIC personnel are seen within every 10 kilometers drive on either side of the road in those areas for enhanced visibility.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Yenre and Kingsley after this break. Do stay with us.
The 14th edition of the PMB Administration Scorecard Series will feature the Honorable Minister of Sports and Youth Development, Mr. Sunday Dari. Date Tuesday, 20th December 2022. Time 10 a.m. Venue National Press Center, Radio House, Abuja. The event will be broadcast live by NTA, FRCN, and VON and streamed on the social media handles of the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. Announcer, Mrs. Lydia Shehu Jafia, MNI, Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Our country people, they talk with one voice. Them say, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu them want as president of Nigeria for this president election.
Asiwaju Bola Tinubu na the man we all know and see all the good work in they do for the country, especially when in the governor of Lagos State.
Now you God use turn Lagos to the best state for Nigeria.
Today, many people all over Nigeria they like to go Lagos, go settle down for business and better life.
Because of the good work when Bola Tinubu do.
People of Nigeria, as Asiwaju do for Lagos, now so him ready to do am for the whole country.
Vote Asiwaju Bola Tinubu for president of Nigeria. Vote Kashim Shettima as vice president. Vote APC, the party will get a broom.
Introducing an all-time mega offer. Get over 50% discount in the Airtel Home Broadband mega offer. Buy a router for just 10,000 naira and get up to 240 gigabyte or a MiFi for 5,000 naira and get up to 125 gigabyte bonus data. More data, more you. Reliable home broadband by
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Crude oil thefts, illegal refining of petroleum products, vandalism of pipelines, sea piracy, kidnapping for ransom, militancy, and environmental degradation are amongst the potent threats in the south-south zone of Nigeria. Accordingly, Operation Delta Safe is being conducted in the south-south and parts of the southeast geographical zone to protect the nation's oil and gas industries, which is the mainstay of Nigeria's economy.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message from the National Orientation Agency.
African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, launches Trader Club program aimed at boosting continental trade and investments. Let's get details from our business desk.
The Trader Club program will empower international businesses and executives to transform trade and investment in Africa through trusted trade intelligence and discover new markets, grow their businesses, save time, access dedicated experts, support, and many more. The program is anchored by Afrexim Bank's Trade Intelligence Solution Unit, conceived to address one of the major hurdles to intra-African trade. Afrexim Bank is quite unequivocal that Trader Club will enable exporters, importers, and investors to access curated trade intelligence and advisory services to support their market expansion, decisions, and network with other businesses. And quickly to the details of Monday's tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Many thanks for that business package. Coming up next for us now is newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Okoli Ugbaja, is here with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Yeri. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Good morning, Kingsley.
All right, good to see you. Let's begin. Yeri, you'll have a busier front page with the New Telegraph, I believe. I also have the leadership newspaper. Very quickly, above the name flag of the leadership newspaper, I'll take two headlines. Military police kill 52 terrorists and bandits in Zamfara and Bauchi. Money laundering, Okukwe pays 13 as vote for Elon Musk to step down. And then the poor procurement law hindering budget implementation, according to the federal government. Protest rocks Abuja over alleged plot by DSS to remove a Mayfield, to remove or to arrest. That's on page 7 in greater detail. 2023 post as the kicker for the lead story. INEC, EFCC, police, and others move against vote buying. President Muhammadu Buhari assured me of free and fair elections. That's according to Atiku, one of the riders. My administration will be worker friendly. Tinubu, that's the candidate for the election. And Okupe's conviction attempt to implicate me, says Peter Obi, candidate of the Labour Party in next year's presidential election. And then on the left-hand side, you have the single column of headlines. Federal government releases proof of Twitter negotiation after suspension. Sokoto Prince Shehu Malami dies at 76. That's what the headline is saying. That is not correct. Inside at page 12, the headline, the story reports that Shehu Malami passed on at the age of 85 in the same paper. So the headline and the story inside do not align. Shehu Malami, Sokoto Prince, passes away. That was in Egypt at the age of 85. And then I earlier read about Twitter users voting for Musk's resignation. The photograph there on the front page of the leadership newspaper shows President Muhammadu Buhari flanked by the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, the Chief of Staff to the President, during the president's 80th day celebration at the presidential villa yesterday. So congratulations to our president. Iri?
And looking at the new Telegraph now, just below the masthead, looking at both this headline exactly, we have vote buying, that's the kicker, will block government accounts early January. And the writer says it will activate its flag up action on politicians, political parties' accounts, monitor withdrawals of huge funds within election period. And then from the IGP, we have police will deploy escort on poll day. Above that lead story on the New Telegraph this morning, we have 80th birthday, my wish for quiet birthday denied by staff. And that's coming from the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Next to that, we have federal government approves 1.3 billion naira for SACCO workers' outstanding rights. The writer says gives sale guidelines for bank shares in discos. Details on page 26 of the New Telegraph. We also have right here, federal government, we have not abandoned Chibok girls. Leah Sharibu says 79 rescued girls are now undergraduates. And that's on page 5 of the New Telegraph. Next to that story, we have Ohaneze debunks alleged killing of 100 northerners in Southeast, says report targeted at Obi. Above the masthead this morning on the New Telegraph, we have infraction. CBN reads riot act to banks, money transfer operators. And just quickly looking below the front page of the New Telegraph this morning, actually below the picture story, we have alleged terrorism. Court refuses DSS application to detain CBN governor. And the writers, we have CSO's kick against plot, no amount of desperation, propaganda will deter us, says agency. You can find details on page 4 and 6 of the New Telegraph. We also have this story here that says 2023 presidential campaign. So many writers to that particular story, but you can find the details on page 4, 5, and 28. Just beside the picture story, we have Money Laundering Act breach. Court hands a cook a 2-year jail term, 13 million naira fine option. Of course, that story is trending on, in all the papers this morning. And if you want to read up the New Telegraph, pages 3 and 6, have the details. Southern Kaduna gunmen killed 37 in fresh attacks, raze houses, properties. And from the reports, says 46 killed in 5 days. Details on page 3 and 26 of the New Telegraph. And finally, this morning on the front page of the New Telegraph, we have 2023. Fayoshe's loyalists reject PDP presidential campaign nominations. So that's it for the New Telegraph this morning.
So, Chukwudi, let's have your comments on some of the stories, and if we have
Yes.
time, we'll go to another.
Yes, I'm starting on a very positive note. PMB has assured me of free, fair elections. That's coming from the presidential, candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Abubakar Atiku. For me, the body movement of people who are in a position to maybe do one or two things that could affect the forthcoming polls negatively, their body movement matters a lot to me. Some people see these as intangibles. Intangibles sometimes drive action that leads to the real conclusion, and not really those physical things or concrete things you see. So I think that this is a very good assurance. The president keeps on doing things that make us say, hey, this man seems ready to give Nigeria fair and free polls. Okay, INEC, EFCC, police, others move against vote buying. Now, this is coming out from a stakeholders summit on the influence of money in the 2023 general election. INEC chairman Mahmoud Yakubu actually used the occasion to warn about the possibility of the 2023 polls receiving the effect of money being laundered. He says that a win at all costs attitude is the twin brother of election violence, because people are not going to spend a lot of money and allow the other man to walk away with victory if they think that it's high stakes for them. But I'm saying that all this is good. But in terms of making sure that transparency rules the electoral process in Nigeria. For me, it should be a total quality thing. We heard stories, gentlemen, please, we're journalists, we heard stories, we heard allegations of how, Ghana must go bags were used to carry money, which went to delegates at some of the conventions and all that. If these were really true, one would have expected that the desire, the action to make sure that our polls are free and fair and no undue advantage is taken should actually start from a very early stage, the convention stage, even earlier than that. So the reason I'm saying all this is that there is need for us to make it a total quality approach, not when they start campaigning, we start talking about action to make sure that politicians do not buy votes and all that. That, I think, is something we should need to enthrone.
Well, that's a good point that you have raised, Chukudi. Well, I think we also need to remember that during the special conventions that the various political parties held to pick their presidential candidates for next year's elections, we had interactions with a number of the political parties. And I recall, for instance, that the People's Democratic Party, which had its own convention at the National Stadium, did beat its chest to say that the EFCC operatives were around during that convention, and the fact that they didn't make any arrests or apprehend anyone who was in breach of extant anti-money laundering provisions of the statutes would mean that they had a clean exercise. Others also did that. But the stories you talked about were all over the place as to US dollars flying around, and there is a very strong suspicion that the run on the Naira actually kicked off with some politicians allegedly buying up dollars so as to reduce the size of the envelopes or wallets they were giving out to delegates at the conventions. We had a special conversation also on the civic and historic duty that delegates owed not just to themselves and to their political parties, but to Nigerians today and in future. But unfortunately, all of that went up. But I think that perhaps what is more urgent now are also the reported accounts. And again, we had a discussion around this last week. Discussions on the allegations that persons are buying up PVCs. Or that persons are deliberately harvesting data from PVCs or destroying whatever information is there by burying PVCs in gutters and septic tanks. I think that for the security agencies, particularly the DSS, this is the time for them to set up sting operations, undercover operations, get into the communities, get into the localities, and pick up persons who are engaged in this act of
action speak louder than
words. Because some of the tactics could well be voter suppression. If we know, for instance, that this is your stronghold, we come and buy up the PVCs. If you buy up the PVCs 1,000, 2,000, as it is alleged, on voting day, you have no capacity.
You've disarmed me.
Precisely, for voting. So I think that is an issue that the DSS should take up. Because we have seen, after the DSS issued that 48-hour ultimatum to fear marketers in the Federal Capital Territory, the fear situation has improved dramatically, but there are virtually no queues anymore. So
there's something the DSS can do about this. But away from the DSS, maybe there's actually need for agencies that are, saddled with the responsibility of sensitizing Nigerians, to actually be up and doing at this point. You don't have to wait till 24 hours of the election to begin to sensitize people on what to do. I think it's time that, we get to see a lot of campaigns, a lot of jingles, people, moving around to sensitize people on the need not to sell their PVCs. I think some people still do not know that, selling it is like selling away your future. They do not understand that whatever it is you're giving for your PVC now cannot equate to what you would get if you have a good government in place. So, besides getting the DSS to do the needful, well, agencies anyway, the INEC, agencies that should sensitize the people should actually be up and doing it, because I'm not seeing a lot of campaigns yet, as regards sensitizing the electorate on what to do before the election and of course during the election.
Here, I've been skating around the NOA matter, the agency that should actually help us in creating a lot of awareness. Look, the town crier was a major information giver in the traditional African society. Now he doesn't need his gong. Modern gadgets have come in to help him. Megaphones and all that, mounted on moving vehicles, they have come in. You begin to ask, is it that the National Orientation Agency does not have enough funds for us to see them come into voter education? It's not constitutionally, nothing is constitutionally against their being part of voter education. Because all these things we are talking about are a function of the limited knowledge, the sphere within which potential voters are acting in. It is very important that these agencies wake up. Let Nigerians know when that man who is telling you tales is actually not helping you to develop the self. But these things are just happening that way. Voter education is very important. Kingsley?
Well, I know, Chukudi,
yes.
And thanks for the points that you have raised. I don't think that NOAA, for instance, is asleep. Again, on Good Morning Nigeria, we have raised the issues on the Director General of NOAA, Dr. Garba Abari, who is a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, has already stopped complaining about the underfunding of NOAA. Each time they go for the budget defense, you hear comments as to what are you doing, what are you doing. If the legislature does not appropriate the requisite funds, how then does it perform its duties? How then does it function?
This was a story I covered 15 years ago.
Yeah, they have
it's still on.
Yeah, they have 774 offices in the federation. That's to say, 774 local government areas where they have their footprint. So it means that they can easily be mobilized. It turns out that there has been little recognition of the utility of such an agency, and indeed, not just of NOAA, but of the entire public information management. I'm saying this because we all can look back now with some nostalgia and say, oh, you remember those Land Rovers that in the 60s and 70s and up to the 80s, I believe, used to go around localities and communities on public enlightenment campaigns. Today, you ask, the Federal Ministry of Information is supposed to have offices in 37 locations throughout the country, 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. What are the resources available to the Federal Ministry of Information? Of course, you add culture to it, for them to perform their functions. So when you go to the various departments, even in the Federal Ministry of Information, like one of the largest departments they have, that's the Department of Public Communication, they are hamstrung. And then you'd also go to the Public Relations and the Public Relations Department. They are also hamstrung. So we desire the outputs ordinarily of these entities, but unfortunately, we're not putting our money where our mouth is.
That has to be corrected.
Exactly.
They are very important.
We just hope that, something is done about it because time is running out. As far as the election
already.
The story is just curious. I don't have the details.
This is a protest?
Well, yeah, protest.
The so-called protest?
Because there is another headline that says that the court has restrained the DSS from arresting the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, over alleged terrorism financing. And then this DSS, of course, is also retorting that, of course, it would not be intimidated by any protests. So because the DSS is reported to have gone to court seeking a remand order on the governor of the central bank for allegations bordering on financing of terrorism and so on and so forth. I don't have the details of the story, and if you don't have details, of course, better to keep quiet rather than making a comment. So if you have once the details emerge, we'll get to know what is afoot.
I was actually
because
interested
again,
in the so-called protest that happened. I didn't really hear so much about it.
Yeah, no, they are related. They are related. The reason I'm saying this is that we must recognize that no one is above the law.
True.
So if there is an infraction of the law takes its course. But again, as I said, if you don't have all the details, then you can't make an informed comment.
Let's call it an allegation at this point.
Okay, yes. Well, I think we'll leave it at that point for now and wait for details so we can actually discuss the issue properly. But for now, we'll take a break on Good Morning Nigeria. Many thanks, Chukudi, for being with us again today.
Thank you so much.
This is Good Morning Nigeria. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
They swore an oath to serve our fatherland and defend the people. They traded their freedom, comfortable homes, and mortgaged their lives on the battleground for our unity and peaceful living. These are the great, fearless, loyal, and committed Nigerian armed forces who risked their lives courageously to safeguard our borders. But in the line of duty, many never returned. Nigerians, arise, let's celebrate our fallen heroes. Put on the remembrance emblem with pride to support the incapacitated and families of our fallen heroes.
The occasion gives cause to reflection and reminds us of the sacrifice made by our armed forces, the unity of the country.
All ministries, parastatals, religious and corporate bodies to donate generously to the Emblem Appeal Lunch. Send your donations to this account. Account name, Emblem Appeal Lunch. Account number 393-200-7526. EcoBank Nigeria PLC.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, Excellent President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
The security situation in Nigeria has been reasonably stable in spite of activities of unpatriotic elements engaged in various criminal activities around the country. Daily situation reports coming in from states. 2 months ago, it has shown relative peace on many of our highways, such as Abuja, Kaduna Birnin Gwari, Sokoto, Zamfara, Kaduna.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as the elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency. Go.
The Council of Our Fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
All right, welcome back. To begin our conversation on the subject matter, let's take this background report put together.
Withholding tax was introduced into the tax system in 1977 with limited flexibility for rent, dividends, and directors' fees. The main objective of the withholding tax regime is to capture more taxpayers into the tax net by ensuring that invaded taxes will be made to pay. The overriding objective of the regime is transparency, the Federal Inland Revenue Service appointed money banks to withhold VAT from invoices of their suppliers or service providers and remit to the service. This appointment is expected to take effect from January 1. The action of the FIRS was in line with Section 14, Subsection 3 of the Value Added Tax Act. This also means that suppliers whose VAT has been withheld by appointed agents are required to declare other VAT due while filing their VAT returns on Tax Pro Max and make payment of amounts that is due. Suppliers and agents who are onboarded on the VAT automation platforms must remain connected to ensure transparency of their own VAT. According to the service, this appointment does not affect the obligation of the taxable persons to render returns or any part of the VAT Act. How far will this go in enforcing full compliance to tax payments on businesses, and will it actually stop evasion? What penalties are in place to ensure compliance? These are some questions guests already seated will be answering shortly.
Many thanks, Oyemi Ajayi, for that background. Now, with us in the studios to throw more light on this fairly technical issue, let's welcome the Director, Special Tax Audit Department of FIRS, Mr. Sunday Okewo. We're glad to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, viewers, and compliment of the season from the FRS. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
That's a tax man wishing you all the very best for the season. Let's also welcome Mrs. Lovett Ononuga, Acting Director of VAT, that's Value Added Tax at the FIRS. Mrs. Ononuga, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
I'm so glad to be here. Yes.
Thank you.
Also here in the studio is Olatunji Olabode, Acting Head, Tax Policy and Advisory, Department of FIRS. Good to have you.
Thank you, madam. Good morning, everyone. Nigerians, good morning.
And also to let you know that we have Abdulaziz Zalaya, Digital Innovation Support Group, FIRS. You're all welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, so, madam and gentlemen, let's begin this conversation. There seems to be, in my head, some slight confusion as to what we're dealing with. Are we dealing with VAT or we are dealing with withholding tax? Because I hear withholding VAT. And then, because VAT and withholding tax, they're not synonymous, are they?
No, absolutely not. There are two different taxes.
Yes.
So the withholding tax is actually an advance payment on your corporate income tax, whereas the VAT, which is the VAT for short, is value added tax, which is a totally different tax paid on purchases and services rendered.
So, what is the essence of the appointment of these collecting agents? Is it for withholding tax or is for VAT collection?
So the appointment is to collect VAT, that is value added tax, from vendors, suppliers, and contractors. So you know, as we are aware, that by law, everyone who engages in the purchase or transactions for purchase of goods and services is expected to remit the VAT charge and collect and remit the VAT due on those goods and services. But the difference with the withheld VAT is that whereas as a taxable person, you have an obligation to account for the VAT that you generate from your own business activities when you sell goods or services or render services. You also now have an additional obligation by disappointment to withhold the VAT that you should have paid on goods that you consume. So your suppliers, when they sell to you, they usually would invoice you for VAT on what they're selling to you as a company. And therefore now, whereas before you pay that VAT to your supplier, now the difference is that you withhold the VAT and then remit it yourself to the FRS.
All
So
right.
that's what is the withhold.
Thank you, Mrs. Lovett, for that explanation. But I don't think it's still, very clear, because in my mind, the issue of double taxation will it not come into play in this particular regime that you're trying to start in January. But before you answer that, I'm talking to you, Sunday Okewo, the Director of Special Tax Audit. Could you tell us why just these entities? I hear that it's just NTA and Airtel and some banks. What is the criteria for choosing the collecting agents, like you call them? And then would it not lead to multiple taxation? Would this really be good for our economy at this point?
All right, thank you, Madam, for the question, and thanks also to Lovett for having shed light on the initial question. VAT, like she said, is a tax on transactions. That is when persons consume services or purchase goods. We call it a consumption tax. And when you do that, the rule is that the service provider or the one that has made the sales is going to be charging you the percentage, which as of today is 7.5%, on top of the cost of the items or the service that was rendered. So if that service provider or the seller of the goods or product is a Nigerian entity, you are by law, that is the consumer, to pay that VAT to the person. That is the service provider or the one who has sold the goods. So that person will collect the VAT from you and remit to the FRS within the designated period of time. As of today, is 21 days after the month of that transaction. That is, if the transaction took place in November, not later than 21st of December, the one who has rendered the service is obligated to return what he has collected to the service. If you look at VAT, it is also a multi-stage kind of tax. Multi-stage in the sense that the one who has rendered the service or who have sold the goods must have also incurred certain expenses for him to be able to provide or render that service. Take example of a wholesaler who sells consumer goods. He must have purchased from the manufacturer. The manufacturer has also charged them input. So when he is making his own returns, he would deduct the tax that he paid, that is the VAT that he has paid to the manufacturer, from the VAT that he has collected from his own customers. So the net is what will be remitted to the FRS. So that probably will answer the question on whether there will be multiple taxation or not in one aspect. Because if you are standing as the wholesaler, you collect VAT from your customer who may be a retailer or who may also be an end-time consumer. But the entirety of what you have collected is not what is going to come to the FRS, because the law recognizes that you must have also made your purchases from the manufacturer, and the manufacturer has also charged you VAT. So it is a plus and minus. What have you collected? I've collected 10,000. How much did you pay when you were acquiring the goods that you are selling? 7,500, for example. So the net, which is 2,500, becomes what that person is going to remit. Meanwhile, the manufacturer will have also done the same thing. What he has charged, 7,500, deducted what he has paid for all the raw materials and whatever that had been consumed in the process of production. So that will have been done. Now, if you now come back to the question of double taxation, VAT is a separate tax in its entirety. Withholding tax is also a separate tax in its entirety. Withholding tax is tied to the company income tax, and that's why she said it's an advanced form of taxation. When you pay withholding tax, when it was as the transaction occurs that you'll be paying withholding tax. At the end of your financial year, if you are a limited liability company, you will need to file the returns of your activity and decide and determine the amount of income tax that you are liable to pay by law. So when you finish, you now come up with the amount of withholding taxes that you had suffered, and you make that as a deduction. You use that value to reduce the amount of your taxes. That is withholding tax. But the issue of withholding VAT that we are speaking to this morning is arising because the law also mandates the FIRS. Section 14, subsection 3, as we have listened to in our intro, says that the service may appoint any person to withhold. Now, if you go back to the example of the wholesaler that I used, the wholesaler is supposed to have collected from his customer and be the one to come and remit to the FIRS. But now the service says that in certain instances, when an agent has been appointed, you will not pay that VAT to the wholesaler. Come and pay directly to us. So what you pay to the wholesaler, the service says, pay directly to me. That is the role that MTN, Airtel, and the deposit money banks that have been so appointed are to be playing now. They have a number of vendors, a number of contractors, a number of suppliers who render services to them, who ordinarily, when they are MTN and the likes have received such services, they will pay the VAT to those suppliers, and those suppliers are now supposed to come and remit to the FIRS. So, but these ones that have been appointed are big players. They have a large number of such clients. So we say to them, rather than your clients coming one after the other, you serve as a middle point, as a collecting point. Collect, don't pay them, come and pay directly to us. So as they are paying to us, their suppliers, their vendors will not need to come and pay what MTN, the deposit money banks, and Airtel had already paid to us. So the issue of double taxation would therefore not arise. I hope I answer your question.
Okay, thank you. I think the more we speak to these issues, the clearer it will become for our viewers. But was it just a lack of faring, or why has the FIRS decided to talk about VAT withholding agents and so on and so forth? Couldn't you look for a better word so that the confusion doesn't arise, whether you are dealing with withholding tax or VAT? I don't know whether you get my question. I'm speaking to Mr. Olatunji Olabode to say if VAT is a distinct taxation from withholding tax, that's clear from your explanation. But the role of these agents, you classify the agents as withholding tax agents or withholding VAT agents. Couldn't we look for another nomenclature for that withholding, another synonym?
Well, thank you for that question. And I appreciate my colleagues that have spoken earlier. VAT by operation, we have what you call output VAT and input VAT. My colleagues shed light to the implication of the suppliers, the so-called vendors to these appointed agents when it comes to rendering the returns. You observe that, you will agree with me that some of these suppliers to those appointed agents are one-horse suppliers. Perhaps some of them are just entering the business the first time. The supply they made could be a one-off supply, and it could be a burden, say to say, for them to be coming one by one to render returns for just one supply. So the service designed this system in such a way that it will ease tax paying for our customers who happen to be the taxpayers. So withholding, we call it withholding VAT, in order to make it clearer that those that are supplying to the agents, the appointed agents, are not supposed to bother themselves coming to FRS to render. We want a situation whereby the person that's supposed to pay them that VAT for them to render to FRS are holding on to it so that they will not be bothered or they won't incur additional expenses in making the payment. Aside that, the appointed agents have the capacity. Some of them are technologically based. So paying tax wouldn't be a problem for them. Rendering returns wouldn't be an issue for them. So, and that accounts for the reason why we choose those few agents for now. We're likely to extend it to other sectors of the economy, but for now, we are focusing on MTN, Airtel, and money deposit bank because of the capacity we have seen in them, as well as their level of compliance.
All right, Dr. Olatunji, thank you so much. You would, expand this regime in the coming days, right? Once your kickstart in January, that's good. But I want to ask Abdulaziz Alaya, this regime, this issue of having some companies, collect the tax and remit to FRS, is there an issue of lack of trust, of the FRS? Maybe you think that these companies or entities who deal with these companies would not actually remit. So you now want these organizations that you can hold and say, okay, where's the tax? Is that why this policy is in place? Is it the issue of lack of trust? And then what is the main objective of this withholding tax regime and the issue of having collecting agents?
Okay, thank you for the question. And we talked about, is it a lack of trust between the FIRS and the taxpayers? I'll say no. And one of the reasons why this came on board is, one, to improve compliance, two, to also reduce the cost of compliance and the cost of collection as well. What do I mean? Like Mr. Okiowo rightly said earlier, MTN, Airtel, and the money deposit banks, they deal with a whole lot of customers who are by law also expected to file their VAT on a monthly basis. Because the law provides that whatever services that you provide or whatever goods that you sold, you're expected to charge VAT on it. And like we said as well, we have the input and output mechanism. Now, the output is what you collect, while the input is what you incurred while you were purchasing your home. Now, assuming a MTN, for example, has 10,000 vendors that provide services for them. Now, instead, ordinarily, the 10,000 vendors, when they do business with MTN, are supposed to charge MTN the VAT. When they collect, they deduct their own input VAT from it. Then they remit the rest. Now, we're now saying, instead of the 10,000 coming to remit that VAT, let's have the MTN, who is ordinarily supposed to pay these 10,000 people, to deduct that VAT that is supposed to be paid to them and remit to the FIRS. Now, that does not in any way exclude the 10,000 vendors from filing their own returns as well. But it brings more efficiency into it. Because obviously, out of the 10,000, you may have, say, 20% of them will not comply as at when due. And this as well also brings money to the government. Now, assuming MTN pays the 10,000, and 8,000 of them comes to file and pay the necessary VAT. So we are left with 2,000, who will likely have to still be going after for compliance purposes. However, the MTN has deducted this, is supposed to pay this 10,000, MTN is now paying it directly to FIRS. So that is giving money to government. You see that in the last few months, we report at the FAC meeting, they report the VAT collected. And you could always see the increment in the value of value-added tax that is collected.
Okay, from the abstract level, let's bring it down to reality, Mrs. Ononuga, because you're talking about input and output, mentioning MTN, Airtel, and then money deposit banks. These don't, in general, these are services that they render. Services. So what is the input? How does it work? And what is the output? How does that affect an individual? Or are these just mere business transactions that the individual customer doesn't need to worry his head about?
Okay. So thank you very much for that question. And thanks to my colleagues who have also expanded on this issue of the input-output mechanism of VAT. That ensures that it's a multi-stage tax, but the input is actually chargeable on only goods and not services. If you offer services, you are not actually entitled to claim an input VAT because there's nothing you're putting into the creation of that service. So the law allows for input VAT to be claimed on when you are producing goods. You understand? So for the MTN and Airtel that we've just recently, and money deposit banks which we have just recently appointed, the VAT is the output VAT we're talking about here mostly. They may incur some level of input if they sell hardware, which is regarded as a good, but it's not as much as when you are into manufacturing. When you are into manufacturing, you are actually buying a raw material and then creating a good. So if you have, for instance, you manufacture handbags or make jewelry, you buy the raw gold and then you turn it into jewelry and then you sell, so you are allowed input and on that good that you have manufactured. Same thing with a handbag. If you're buying the raw leather and then producing the handbag in the factory and then reselling, so that's where the difference is basically.
I'm sorry. This is still not clear. Okay. I mean, maybe Mr. Okewo may also weigh in here. What then is the rationale? Because we're talking about services, and then the input factor is limited, and then the output factor probably is more dominant. So is your focus on services, the collection of VAT on services, or the entire spectrum? You understand what I'm saying? Just for the benefit of our viewers, let's have the clarification to say, look, why have you appointed MTN or Airtel or even money deposit banks? In fact, when I heard money deposit banks, my mind just went to say, look, somebody has a fixed deposit at maturity. If it has yielded interest, then of course on that interest there's a withholding tax on it, but which is not the issue we are dealing with now. We are dealing with VAT. So your normal banking transaction, your normal MTN, you buy your data. How does this come about?
All right, thank you. Very good question, and also very good responses that have been provided by Lovett. Let me just say clearly that what the new policy has no direct effect on customers of any bank. Neither does it have any direct effect on customers of the telecoms. It's not going to lead to a price increase. It's not going to lead to a tariff raise or whatever, except those organizations intend to raise their prices ab initio, which is within their prerogative. So that has nothing to do with that. But the point that we are stressing, like Abdulaziz said, is compliance will get better. And that is the main thing that the FRS is set to achieve. We trust all our taxpayers, and that is why the tax system is structured around the self-assessment regime. What that means is determine by yourself the amount of taxes that you ought to pay, the amount of taxes that is due from you by law, and come and remit. That is the basis of the tax system largely. But in order to make things better, the law has empowered the FIRS to be able to appoint people or persons who could be of assistance in the compliance process. And that is where the MTN, the Airtel, and the money deposit banks stands. So for the banks, the amount of deductions that they will be deducting will not be coming from their customers. Take any bank, for example, without having to mention names. They have people who does a whole lot of things for them, like service providers to them. People does their repairs and maintenances that they will pay. People does the cleaning of the banks that they will pay. People does constructions of their offices, and so on and so forth. It's endless. They buy computers, they buy generator, and all of those. So all of those services are liable to VAT. So everyone who renders such services to the banks will invoice them for the value of the work done, and will also add a 7.5% VAT on top of it. So with the current system that we practice, Bank A, for example, when it receives that invoice, will pay the value of the service charge by the service provider, and will also pay the VAT to that service provider. Then the service provider has the obligation to bring the 7.5 to the FIRS. And they are in their numbers. You can imagine how many they could be. So the table is now being turned. We have seen the banks. You have very large vendors, service providers, suppliers. Ditto for all of these other entities that have been so appointed. Okay, it's going to help compliance because not all of the vendors are indeed feasible. I think it was Olabade who mentioned that some might be doing just a one-off transaction. He does it, and after the end of the contract, you cannot get him again. Meanwhile, he's been paid the VAT, which is government money. He has taken his own, the one that he has collected on behalf of the government. You begin to have to put in extra effort to look for him. So you, who is the payer, as you raise your one check for the supplier, you are raising also the check for the FIRS. So if you like, monthly basis, you can collect everything together and you remit to the service. So it has nothing to do with the end customers at all.
All right, thank you, Sunday Ukewo, Director of Special Tax Audit FIRS. I think my next question will now be to Dr. Olatunji. Mr. Sunday has made it really very simple, what this regime is all about. But we are Nigerians, and in Nigeria, people find a way to, always bypass the system. I mean, the new Naira was released some days ago, but we're already hearing of counterfeit. So as you're coming up with this idea, of course, these companies are also looking for ways to invade the FIRS. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Now, you're starting with just the money banks, MTN and Airtel. Some other sectors are not a part of it. Now, look at this scenario. A company who renders service to, say, MTN, and then to another company that is not listed as an agent for this tax. He said that that same company is still supposed to, come to FIRS and say, this is what we did and all of that. Is it not possible that such companies may just come up to say that all we did, for this period is with only those agents that you have appointed and they have collected the tax. So I have nothing else to remit to you. since you are not yet in some other sectors at the moment. So as you answer that question, what are the offenses under withholding VAT system? And then what are the punishments stipulated in the VAT Act?
Thank you very much for the question. The Value Added Tax Act, as well as other enactments of Nigeria, specifically FR Establishment Act, specify penalties and interest to be applied on offenders. This penalty ranges from absolute figure to relative figures, as well as imprisonment. So, for instance, if you fail to render to remit what you have collected, the value-added tax puts in place 10% as the penalty, in addition to the tax you're supposed to pay. And as well, if you are found guilty of evading the tax, the court of law can place imprisonment of 3 years on you. So this is one of the penalties available. So you can even have you can also be made to bar, just like we have not appoint some of the taxpayers. You can also be made to not to be a party to those people to be appointed as agents of collection.
Okay, but how would you find out?
Okay.
The scenario I painted. How would you find out that a company did not only deal with only the collecting agents that you have, that they have also dealt with some other companies that are not listed right now as your collecting agent? How would you be able to find out and be able to get the tax they're supposed to pay? Such that they're not short-changing government like he said.
Yes, FRS put in place technology. We have an office mining data, analyzing the data of taxpayers. So we have opportunity with that analysis we are doing to detect some of the tax evaders. So once we get hold of you, definitely the law will catch up with that person.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Olatunji Olabode. Let's bring in again Abdulaziz Alaya. There were issues sometime in the past with regard to non-remittance of VAT collected by a broad range of businesses. How does the appointment of these new agents help ameliorate or mitigate against earlier reports of non-remittance? Because it appears that this is just a small slice of the business world in Nigeria that is covered by the appointment of these collecting agents.
Okay. We're talking about people who are ordinarily not been remitting before now, right?
That's
Did I get
my
it
question.
correctly?
Yes.
All right, that's fine. So, like I said earlier, on the issue of compliance, in fact, this will bring to fore some of those companies who have been dealing with these big corporations that have now been appointed. It will bring them forward because, assuming I am XYZ Limited, and over times I've been doing business with MTN or with Airtel or with any of the money deposit banks, and I have not been complying with the monthly value-added tax filing of my returns. It simply mean that when the new appointees, instead of paying the VAT to you, when they come to remit, because just like Dr. Olabode said earlier, we have technology and we also have the Tax Pro Max system, which every taxpayer now uses in filing their returns. Now, when the Airtel files their returns, the returns comes with a schedule. And these schedules have the details of every taxpayers that they have dealt with. So say for example, I am one of the money deposit banks that have so been appointed for the VAT, and I'm remitting, say for example, 1 billion naira this month. And out of that 1 billion, I have 5,000 taxpayers that I have dealt with. And out of these 5,000, we have about, say, 200 of them who have actually not been remitting. Now, I am going to be providing their details with their tax identification number, their TIN, and the description of the services they have provided for me, including the amount that is involved. So that gives FIRS an information that, okay, if we want to even look at, by the time we're doing our own review, we'll look at the number of taxpayers that have so been submitted by these new agents vis-a-vis the tax compliance records of those taxpayers who they are dealing with.
Sorry, let this not sound like some rocket science. One knows that companies also have their VAT identification number or otherwise to say that, yes, that just to say that you are entitled to collect VAT or to charge VAT on your goods or on your services. So that it's now 7.5%. If you issue an invoice to a client, you put the cost of the business or the service or the good, and then the VAT, and then of course your VAT number, your VAT collection number means that you are genuine. Now, that's why I'm asking the question. There are a number of businesses and number of numbers that you have. I don't know what the number is that you have issued for persons who are entitled to collect VAT. Take a simple example. You go to a supermarket, you go to a mall, some of these big shops and so on and so forth. By the time you get to the register and they are tallying up your purchase, at the end of it, you have a VAT. A VAT factor is there, 7.5%. You get it. Now, but these persons have not been named. That's why when you say Airtel, MTN, money deposit banks, they are not the same as some of these supermarkets or malls that businesses go on round the clock. I mean, when you mentioned Airtel and MTN, what comes to my mind, I don't know whether that's part of it, they have a number of base stations all over the place. And these base stations have to be serviced. People will supply them diesel, for instance, and other ancillary services. So how does this impact on the efficiency of collection system-wide, rather than to these specific entities that are now to be withholding VAT collection?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I'm just going to try to be as use very, very layman expressions to try and explain this, how it works. Sometimes we are taxmen, so sometimes when we speak tax, and it may be a bit confusing for the layman. So, but let me just explain it the way it works. The reason why we have chosen Airtel, MTN, and the money deposit banks, by the way, this is not new to FRS or to the Nigerian tax system. Section 13 already has enshrined in it that all oil and gas companies operating in the oil and gas space, they also are required to withhold VAT from their suppliers and to remit to the service as well. All MDAs, that's all government ministries, departments, and agencies, are also by law expected to withhold VAT from their contractors and suppliers and remit to FRS. So it's not new. So Section 14 is what actually gives FRS the power to appoint any other person as an agent of VAT collection. So which is what we have exercised now. We have exercised the power and appointed these companies. There is no, it doesn't mean that we are not going to appoint more companies. We might still appoint more companies. We're working through it. This is the beginning, and the reason we've done it, just like my colleagues have all explained, is because of one, efficiency. Two, to help improve, to reduce cost of collection. How does it do that? Because when you have one person with 1,000, 2,000 or 10,000 suppliers to just that one client, and then you now centralize the collection of VAT by that one person. Now, that one person is also expected when they file, they will supply the TIN numbers, just like you said, of all their suppliers, which now means that all these other suppliers and contractors become very visible to the tax administration system. So on our systems, because we have deployed technology, all filing of VAT is now done on one platform, and that is called the Tax Promax, which is the Nigerian FRS tax administration system. So that one system, every taxpayer in Nigeria is supposed to do their filing on that one system. So we have visibility using that technology on all taxpayers who file. Now imagine what will happen if one deposit bank or one MTN with all their suppliers and vendors that they have nationwide now files and uploads a schedule of all their suppliers to the FRS, indicating their TIN numbers, their business name and addresses. So that means that all these suppliers now become visible to the tax administration. If they were not filing before, then it becomes obvious that there is a gap, because we can go back on the system and see their tax record. But if they were filing, then we also see if there are any lapses, we're able to see it. So the system is like a self-auditing system. You know, the Tax Promax is a self-auditing system that allows the FRS visibility on all her taxpayers who are supposed to be filing, and sees immediately anyone who has not filed.
And the underlying factor here is trust on the collecting agency or the collecting agent to render full disclosure of transactions with suppliers. Is that correct? Yeah. And if that is so, I don't mean to disrespect the agents that have been appointed, but speaking generally, we do know, for instance, that some businesses prepare a number of different books, different accounts. And so in some of those accounts, what will lead to the balance sheet could be a non-disclosure of some transactions and so on and so forth. How do you account for this, Mr. Okewo?
All right, thank you. And I take it from where you stop. The agents, we trust them. Not only them, we also trust other taxpayers. But like the co-anchor has asked before, people will also want to cut corners. That is normal when it comes to issues of taxation. And that speaks to what Lopet was saying, that with technology, we are much better now to be able to see things, you know, much more earlier and much more clearly. And what that means is, as FRS, when you have rendered a service and you collect VAT, you render to us. And the VAT that you have collected, which is output to you, output tax, which Olabode was also speaking to the other time, is input to another company. So the man who has done the output will render returns that I have issued invoices to these companies. Is going to be on the system, because those output becomes input to another taxpayer. So it comes also to come and make those claims. So the system would be talking to system now. You have filed your output, which I know is somebody's input. The system is already matching it. So if you are making a claim for an input, and somebody who's supposed to have declared that as output has refused to declare it, the system is going to issue an exception report that I have received this, your claim, but come on, Mr. A, who ought to have rendered this return, has not rendered. So by the time the system is not able to knock that claim against what has come in, it becomes an issue for investigation. or for audit. So on the part of the agent, yes, they have good records, track records. And part of what we have also put on the table is that the money to be so withheld from the vendors, they are not free fund for anybody to want to play any game with. Why? Because you who has been appointed the agent, you are going to be making your returns to us. And the vendors that has also suffered that deduction that you ought to have paid, and we said, don't pay them, come and pay us, will also come and render returns to us. So if the agent has submitted his own returns, is going to give us a schedule. That schedule will give us the list of all the vendors every month, from whose invoices they have deducted VAT or withhold VAT and remitted to us. Individually, all of the vendors also will file their own returns and will say, take for example, MTN, I am vendor A, I am on the list or the schedule submitted by MTN or Airtel or any of the banks. And the agent has said that from vendor A, I have deducted 1 million naira. Vendor A in his own return will come to tell me how much was deducted by the agent from his vendor. So system, talking to system, will fish it out if there is any anomaly. Why would the agent say you have withheld 2 million and you are reporting 1 million?
The reason I ask this is we have experience in this jurisdiction, for instance, with check-off dues. Companies will collect check-off dues. This is for union purposes. Collect check-off dues or not remit. We also have problems, and it's been raised in the past, with payee. That's pay as you earn, which is personal income tax. Some companies, private companies, will deduct payee and then not remit to the authority. That's why I'm raising this question, to say that, okay, you may be dealing with a smaller group now, but where you have a plenitude of taxpayers and of collecting authorities, then the challenge probably is likely to multiply. So you want to speak to this issue I raised now about pay. There were challenges with that in the past, as well as check-off dues, which is not necessarily your issue. But pay, personal income tax, they will deduct it and then not remit.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know that has been happening. That happened in the past when the system was largely manual. And in terms of payee, FRS is not really the organization that per se collect payee. We only collect a few for the armed forces and also for officers in the foreign affairs who are on foreign mission. That these are the categories that we collect as the revenue agency of the federal government. But I do understand your perspective that somebody may withhold and keep the money and will not remit. Now, with automation, monitoring becomes easier for us because we cannot preempt what the agent will do. We only believe that they are indeed trustworthy and they will act in accordance with the mandate that has been given to them. Withhold and remit within specified number of days. Now, part of what we have also explained to them that business as usual, let's forget about it. It's not going to be so. Under the law, the executive chairman of the FRS has power to place a lien on the bank account of any person. So if you have collected and you delay your remittance, that power could be triggered. And a lien is placed on your account in order to collect that money because it is the money of the government. And that probably is one of the penalties or offenses, how we are going to be dealing with it when somebody has contravened the law.
All right. Thank you so much, Sunday. Of course, we have many more questions for you as regards, this regime. But we'll quickly take a break now. When we come back, Good Morning Nigeria continues. Please stay.
Was a civil servant.
I'm a teacher by profession.
I trained as a nurse.
I could not even remember some of them but by their approach, greeting, and respect.
I make beads. I liquid soap with, I have stopped buying liquid soap from the market. I make it and I teach these young ones how to do that. And when I do, it is not for any fee.
In most cases, I serve as consultants. Many people come to me inquiring how to go about doing the farming. I normally direct them on what to do.
Right now, I'm not into any paid job, as I said, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
Senior citizens over the years have shown that they are still capable of working. They have shown that retirement is only but a social construct, not a limitation. Senior citizens until the end carry around a wealth of knowledge that we can tap into. They have walked these journeys we now walk today. They have amassed all of these experiences so they can stand holding the torch so we do not stumble in the dark. Our senior citizens are national assets packed full with inestimable value. They should not be condemned to a life of obscurity, but one where they serve to illuminate our path. Promoting senior citizens for intergenerational workforce.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news, or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're discussing, of course, tax issues around the new services that will become operational from next year. And that is to say that some select companies, Airtel, MTN, and some of the money deposit banks will now act as collecting agents for value-added tax. Of course, this is more essentially in the realm of business-to-business transaction, but individuals will know direct effect on the consumers of the services of these entities that have been appointed as collecting agents. I want to come back to Abdulaziz. Abdulaziz, what should be of concern to anyone who is involved in this process? And what should be the expectation?
Okay, the concerns for the agents that have now been appointed will be, for me personally, some of them will be looking at what will be involved in complying to these new assignments or new functions that has been given to them. For us on the FIRS, we have a platform called the Tax Romax, which has been mentioned, and they are expected to file returns. However, I feel what we may give them a bit of concern is they are expected to upload a schedule of all their vendors with the correct information of this they have. However, subsequent filings will only require that they update some of these informations. If you have a vendor that deals with you on a regular basis, you will not need to be putting the name or the thing. It's only the first time. What may be changing is perhaps the amount that is involved in the transactions and the VAT chargeable on those. So we've made it so easier for the vendors to be able to do this. But the hiccup will be the first time doing this, because it means if I have 10,000 vendors, I have to populate the records of 10,000. Yes, it's we understand that it could be a bit of work for them, but we are sure that going forward, it's not going to be an issue.
All right, many thanks, Abdulaziz. I'll quickly go to Mrs. Loveth now. You know, Sunday and Abdulaziz have mentioned the tax pro marks and all that. You know, could you please, explain to us clearly how a taxpayer is supposed to, get registered or file in that particular portal, because I hear it's an online portal. And from what has been said so far, the tax pro max is a game changer, because you get to see what different companies are doing, the taxes the collecting agents are remitting, and what the companies are also stating that they've remitted. So would this system help to check people who may mistakenly, because of course nobody wants to pay tax in excess, but I think it's possible. Yeah, so would this system help to check that? And then is there a way to get a refund? Because of course Nigerians want to hear that. Sometimes you overpay, or things could happen when it comes to figures.
Absolutely.
So could you please explain that to us?
All right, thank you very much for that question. Very good question. I'd like to just try and explain, just to highlight the entire scenario, the picture from beginning to end. So we're talking about suppliers to Airtel, MTN, and money deposit banks. These, so for instance, take a bank. The bank has cleaners, a cleaning company offering services to the bank. So let's just look at just that one supplier of a service to the bank. Now, there may be several other suppliers doing different things for the bank. They are all taxpayers. The bank itself is a taxpayer, right? So when the bank is paying to the cleaning company that cleans its offices, or maintenance company that maintains its offices, or even prints checks for them, printing company, those are all suppliers to the banks, right? So they are all taxpayers, and when the bank is now paying them, the bank is required now to withhold the VAT, that portion, instead of paying it to the supplier, and then remit that. So when they go on tax promax, the first thing is, as an agent, an appointed agent, you have to, of course, you must be registered on tax promax. And then when you log in, you go to group taxes. That's a platform on there called group taxes, where you now select the withheld VAT, WVAT, and then you can now enter the details of the supplier that you're paying, that we have withheld from, and then you file. Then when it comes to the supplier of the service, that's the cleaning company or the printing company or the maintenance company which is supplying to the bank, they are also expected to file by the 21st day of the month all the VAT which was aggregated in the previous month. So the VAT aggregated in November, for instance, if they were paid by the bank or they did any service to the bank, that VAT, they're supposed to also file it by the 21st of, which is actually tomorrow. Tomorrow is the deadline for filing VAT accrued in November. So they are also supposed to have a login access on Tax Pro Max, login, and also go in and do their normal filing as they would. Now, they now have an opportunity to access the VAT that was withheld on their behalf and apply it. Then declare any other VAT that was not withheld, because they may have done services for a non-bank or outside another tax where there is not MTN or there's not an agent. So the VAT from those activities would not have been withheld. So if they supply to, let's say, NTA, well, NTA is probably not a good example because NTA is a government agency, is actually expected to also withhold.
Okay.
So just another corporate company out there, doing business, ABC company, they supply cleaning services to them. Then VAT that accrued from that, they are supposed to declare it on the tax roll when they log in and file normally. We say that those who withhold VAT on behalf of their vendors and suppliers should actually try and file